People still talk about this story when the fire burns low and the night is quiet. It is about a mother who spoke before thinking and spirits who never forget words spoken from the heart. Sit close and listen. If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my folktale story from. I want to know how far it has traveled. In a small village by the river lived a woman named Saad. She was known to be strong with her hands, but weak with patience. Sade had a son named Kunli, a quiet boy with wide eyes and gentle ways. From the day he could walk, Kunli followed her everywhere. Yet Sade often felt tired of him. She felt her life had become heavy because of caring for a child alone. Each morning, Sade went to the farm while Kunli stayed near, picking stones and drawing shapes in the dirt. When he asked questions, she waved him away. When he fell, she told him to stand up alone. People noticed this and shook their heads, but no one spoke. One dry afternoon, the sun burned hot, and Kunli cried from hunger. Sade felt shame rise in her chest, not toward herself, but toward the child. Angry words formed in her mouth. She looked at the sky, the land, and the river, and she spoke without care. "I wish this child would stop following me," she said. "I wish the spirits would take him away." The wind moved. The river grew still. Somewhere unseen, something listened. That night, Kunli did not come home when the moon rose high. When darkness filled the village, Sade waited by her doorway. At first she felt relief. The house was quiet, no questions, no small feet moving about. But when the moon climbed higher, fear crept into her heart. She called Kunli's name once, then again. Her voice echoed, but no answer came back. Neighbors came out holding small lamps. They asked questions, but Sade had no answers. Some remembered her harsh words earlier that day and felt uneasy. They searched the paths, the farms, and the riverbank. They called until their throats hurt. Still, Kunli was nowhere. The village elder warned them not to go into the forest at night. Some doors should not be opened after dark, he said. Sade sat on the ground and rocked back and forth. Her wish returned to her mind like a sharp thorn. She tried to push it away, but it stayed. Sleep did not come that night. Before dawn, a strange thing happened. Footprints appeared at the edge of the village. They were small like a child's, but they glowed faintly in the dust. They led toward the old forest, where people rarely went. The elder studied them and sighed. "These are spirit marks," he said. "Not all wishes are answered the way we expect." Sai felt her heart drop. She realized then that words spoken in anger can travel faster than love. At sunrise, the village gathered again. The footprints were still there, clear and glowing. No wind touched them. No bird crossed them. It was as if the ground itself was holding its breath. Sade followed the marks with shaking legs. Each step felt heavier than the last. As they reached the forest edge, the elder stopped her. "Only you may go further," he said. "This path belongs to your words." The forest was cool and quiet. Tall trees blocked the sun, and the air smelled old. Sade walked alone, calling Kunli's name softly now. Her voice was no longer sharp, it was full of fear and regret. Soon she heard a whisper, like leaves brushing together. Shapes moved between the trees. She saw figures made of light and shadow. They did not walk, they floated. A voice spoke, calm and deep. "You asked, and we answered," it said. "You wished the child gone." Sade fell to her knees. Tears ran down her face. "I did not mean it," she cried. "I was tired. I was careless." The voice replied, "The spirits do not weigh tiredness. We hear truth in words." Ahead, she saw Kunle standing still, his eyes glowing softly. He looked unharmed, but distant, like someone standing between two worlds. Sadie reached out to Kunle, but an unseen force stopped her. The spirits formed a circle around them. The forest felt alive, watching and listening. "You may take him back," the voice said, "but every wish has a price." Sade nodded quickly. "I will pay anything," she said. Her words came fast, full of hope. The spirits did not answer right away. The trees creaked, the ground seemed to sigh. Then the voice returned, slow and clear. "From this day you will feel every pain your carelessness causes." Sade did not fully understand, but she agreed. The moment the words left her mouth, Kunle fell into her arms. His eyes returned to normal, and he cried like a child waking from a bad dream. They walked back to the village together. People welcomed them with joy and fear mixed together. No one asked questions. That night, when Kunle scraped his knee, Sade felt the sharp pain in her own leg. When he cried from hunger, her stomach twisted the same way. When he felt fear, her heart raced. Sade stayed awake all night, holding her son. She understood then. Love ignored becomes pain shared. The spirits had answered differently, and their lesson had begun. Days passed, and Sade changed. She moved slower. She listened more. Each time Kunli laughed, warmth filled her chest. Each time he hurt, she felt it deeply. The village noticed. Sade no longer pushed Kunli away. She taught him songs. She held his hand on long walks. She spoke gently, even when tired. One evening, the elder visited her. "The spirits are watching," he said. "They see learning, not just suffering." That night, Sade dreamed of the forest again. The glowing figures appeared, softer now. The voice spoke one last time. When care replaces carelessness, the debt grows light. She woke with tears on her face and peace in her heart. From that day, the pain slowly faded. Not all at once, but enough to breathe. Kunli grew strong and kind. He never knew how close he came to being lost. But Sade knew, and she never forgot. The village tells this story to mothers and fathers when anger rises too fast. It reminds them that words are seeds. Once planted, they will grow. And that is how a careless wish became a lasting lesson, carried from fire to fire, night after night. As Kunli grew, the bond between mother and son deepened like roots finding water. Sade woke before dawn each day, not from pain but from care. She prepared food slowly, thinking of each step. Every careless thought now felt loud in her mind. One afternoon, Kunli followed other children to the river. Sade watched from a distance, her heart tight with worry. When Kunli slipped on a stone and fell into shallow water, fear struck him fast. At that same moment, Sade felt her chest tighten and her breath shorten. She ran before anyone shouted. She pulled Kunli out, shaking and wet. As she held him, the pain faded. The lesson was clear again. Fear shared became lighter when love acted quickly. That evening, Sade gathered the children and told them stories. She spoke of kindness, of listening, and of thinking before speaking. The children listened closely. Even adults paused nearby. But not everyone believed change could last. Some villagers whispered that spirits do not give gifts without watching. Sade heard these whispers and stayed humble. That night, the wind passed through the village and stopped at her door. Sade felt it brush her skin like a reminder. She whispered a promise into the dark, not to spirits, but to herself. "I will choose care," she said, "even when my heart feels tired." Seasons changed, and Kunli became known for helping others. He shared food, carried water, and spoke gently. People said the boy had an old soul, shaped by unseen hands. One dry season, food grew scarce. Hunger tested the village. Some people grew angry and sharp with words. Sade felt the old fear return. She watched herself closely. One morning, Kunli offered half his meal to a crying child. As he did, Sade felt a small ache in her stomach. Not pain, but warmth. She understood that kindness also travels between hearts. But the spirits had not finished teaching. That night, Sade heard footsteps outside, slow and heavy. She opened the door and saw a woman cloaked in shadow. Her eyes glowed softly. "You have learned," the woman said, "but learning must be tested." The next day, Kunli fell sick. His body burned with fever. Sade felt it too. She did not sleep. She did not complain. She stayed beside him, wiping his face, whispering hope. As the sun rose on the third day, Kunli's fever broke. Sade felt relief rush through her like cool rain. From then on, she knew love is proven not by words, but by staying when it hurts most. When Kunli recovered, the village celebrated quietly. No drums were played, no loud songs were sung. Gratitude filled the air instead. The elder called Sade to his hut. "Your story is no longer only yours," he said. "It belongs to the village now." Sade bowed her head. She did not feel proud. She felt awake. Soon after, travelers came through the village. One woman complained loudly about her child, calling him a burden. Sade felt a sharp pain in her chest, not from the spirits but from memory. She pulled the woman aside and spoke gently. She did not share her whole story, only the lesson. "Words can travel where feet cannot," she said. That night, Sade dreamed again. This time, she stood by the river. The water was clear. The spirits watched from the surface like reflections. "You have turned a punishment into a path," the voice said. "This is rare." Sade asked, "Will the pain ever fully leave?" The voice replied, "When care becomes your nature, not your effort." She woke smiling softly. Kunle slept beside her, peaceful and safe. From that day, Sade no longer feared the spirits. She respected them, like elders who correct so the young may live well. Years passed. Kunli grew tall and strong. He became known for calming fights and helping elders. People listened when he spoke. One day, a dispute broke out between two families. Harsh words filled the air. Old anger returned. Sade felt a light ache, reminding her that careless words still had power. Kunli stepped forward and spoke calmly. "Let us speak as if spirits are listening," he said. The crowd grew quiet. The families talked. Tears fell. Peace returned. That night, the wind moved through the village again, but this time it felt warm. Sade knew the spirits approved. She realized then that the wish she once made had shaped more than her life. It had shaped her son into a guide for others. But the spirits give balance. Joy must always remember its roots. Later that night, Sade felt a small pain and smiled. It reminded her not to forget where she came from. She whispered into the darkness, "Thank you for teaching me before it was too late." The fire crackled, and the night answered with silence. When Sade grew old, she called Kunli to her side. Her voice was soft but clear. "Listen well," she said. "Care is not a feeling, it is a choice made every day." Kunli nodded. He had lived the lesson, even without knowing its full beginning. When Sade passed, the village mourned deeply. But they also celebrated her life. The elder told her story by the fire, not as shame, but as wisdom. The spirits were silent that night. No signs appeared. No wind moved. Their work was done. Kunli became a father one day. When his child cried, he held her close. When anger rose, he paused. He remembered without remembering. And so the lesson traveled on. This is how a careless wish became a careful life. This is how spirits answer differently. This is how truth reveals itself, not with fear, but with growth. The fire burns low now. Carry the lesson with you when you leave. After Sade's passing, Kunli felt a quiet space inside him. It was not empty, but calm, like a river after rain. The village looked to him more often now. When elders spoke, they invited him to sit close. When children argued, they called his name. Kunli did not see himself as special. He only remembered how his mother had changed. He remembered her patience, her listening, and her steady hands. Without knowing why, he followed the same path. One evening, a young mother came to him in tears. She said her child cried too much and brought her shame. Kunli felt a small ache in his chest, like an old echo. He listened quietly. "Children cry because they trust," he said. "When we stop listening, they cry louder." The woman wiped her face and nodded. Kunli watched her walk away and hoped the lesson would stay. That night, Kunli dreamed of the forest. He stood where his mother once stood. The spirits did not appear, but he felt watched. Not with judgment, but with care. When he woke, he knew something simple and deep. Lessons do not end with one person. They move like fire passed from hand to hand. The village fire burned bright that night, and Kunli sat beside it, ready to guide when needed. As years passed, Kunli's name traveled beyond the village. Travelers spoke of a man who settled anger with words and healed fear with patience. Some came only to test him. One afternoon, a proud trader mocked Kunli in front of others. He called him weak and soft. Kunli felt heat rise in his chest, but he did not answer quickly. He remembered his mother's wish and the cost it carried. Kunli spoke calmly. "Soft ground grows the strongest trees," he said. The trader laughed and walked away. But that night, his cart broke, and his goods spilled into the river. People whispered, but Kunli stayed silent. He knew better than to celebrate another's loss. Later, Kunli sat alone and felt a gentle pressure in his chest. Not pain, but warning. He understood then that wisdom must walk with humility. He went to the trader and helped him gather what remained. The man bowed his head in shame. That night, Kunli dreamed again. The river flowed clear. No spirit spoke, but the water reflected his face and his mother's smile. He woke knowing this truth. Power without care becomes harm, and care without pride becomes strength. When Kunli became a father, the village watched closely. They knew the story, even if not all the details. They wondered how the lesson would live on. Kunli named his daughter Ayo, meaning joy. From the start, he listened to her cries and laughter. When tiredness came, he rested instead of speaking harshly. One night, Ayo would not stop crying. Kunli felt his head ache and his body weaken. He stepped outside and breathed slowly. He remembered the firelight stories. Inside, he held Ayo and sang softly. The crying stopped. Peace returned. That same night, Kunli dreamed of his mother. She stood smiling, strong and calm. She did not speak, but her eyes were full of pride. Kunli woke with tears and gratitude. The village elder later said, "When lessons become habits, spirits rest." From that day, Kunli told the story often, not as fear, but as guidance. Children listened closely. Parents nodded slowly. The fire carried the story forward, warming faces, lighting minds, and reminding all who listened that care shapes destiny. As Kunli aged, his steps slowed, but his voice stayed steady. The village changed, but the fire remained. One evening, a storm came without warning. Thunder shook the sky, children cried, parents rushed about. Kunli stood calmly and called everyone close. "Fear grows when we scatter," he said. They gathered, and the storm passed. The fire stayed lit. Later that night, Kunli felt a familiar ache, gentle and brief. He smiled, knowing it was only a reminder. He spoke into the night. "I have listened." The wind moved softly through the trees like an answer. Kunli understood then that the spirits do not punish forever. They teach until the lesson stands on its own. When dawn came, the village felt lighter. People spoke kinder. Children laughed freely. The story had done its work again. In his final years, Kunli sat often by the fire and watched the children. He told stories slowly, leaving space for thought. "This tale," he said, "is not about fear. It is about care." The children leaned closer. He told them of a careless wish, a long lesson, and a love that learned to stay. When Kunli passed, the village did not cry loudly. They spoke softly and remembered deeply. That night, the fire burned steady and bright. No spirits appeared. No signs were given. They were no longer needed. The lesson had become a way of life. After Kunli's passing, the village felt quiet, but not empty. His words still lived in people's minds. Mothers paused before shouting. Fathers listened longer. Children learned early that words carry weight. Ayo, now grown, became a storyteller. Each night, she sat by the fire and shared the old tale. She never rushed it. She let the pauses speak. "When my grandmother made a careless wish," she would begin, the spirits listened. The children leaned closer. They always did. Ayo did not add fear to the story. She added truth. She explained how love learned too late can still change the future. One evening, a young boy asked, "Do the spirits still watch us?" Ayo smiled gently. "They watch through our choices," she said. That night, Ayo felt a calm warmth in her chest. No pain, no warning, just peace. She knew the lesson had taken root again. The fire crackled softly, pleased with the telling. As seasons passed, the story traveled far beyond the village. Travelers carried it across rivers, forests, and dusty roads. Each village told it in its own voice, but the meaning stayed strong. In one place, a harsh father heard the tale and softened his tone. In another, a tired mother listened and held her child longer. No spirits appeared, yet change followed. Ayo grew older, but she never stopped telling the story. When asked why she repeated it so often, she answered simply, "Because forgetting is how lessons die." One quiet night, Ayo dreamed of the forest. The trees stood tall and still. There were no glowing shapes, no voices calling, only a deep feeling of rest. When she woke, she felt light. She knew the spirits were no longer correcting, they were trusting. That morning, Ayo gathered the children and asked them to tell the story themselves. Their voices shook, they missed words, but the meaning stayed alive. Ayo listened, without correcting. The fire crackled brighter, as if pleased. That night, she understood something clear and deep. When wisdom is shared, it no longer belongs to one voice. It belongs to everyone who listens and chooses to live differently afterward. One afternoon, a young boy in the village spoke cruelly to his mother. His words cut deep and sharp. The air around them fell silent. Ayo did not scold him. She did not shout. Instead, she called everyone to the fire as night came. She began the story again from the very beginning. She spoke of the careless wish, the listening spirits, and the long lesson that followed. She spoke slowly, letting each word settle. The boy's face changed as he listened. His anger faded into shame. His eyes filled with tears before the story ended. When the fire burned low, the boy stood and held his mother's hand. He said nothing, but his grip spoke enough. No wind rushed through the village, no signs appeared, no spirits showed themselves. Yet something had shifted. Ayo smiled softly. She knew this was how stories were meant to work, not through fear, but through understanding. That night, the village slept peacefully. The fire rested quietly. The lesson had done its work without punishment, without pain, and without noise. It had reached the heart, where true change always begins and grows slowly into something strong. As Io grew very old, her voice softened, but her words remained steady. She spent more time sitting by the fire, watching the children listen with wide eyes. One evening, she called the youngest child close. She placed a gentle hand on the child's shoulder. "This story is alive," she said. "Carry it carefully. It carries us too." The child nodded, not fully understanding, but feeling the weight of the moment. That night, Io dreamed of her father and grandmother. They stood near the river, calm and smiling. They did not speak. They did not need to. When morning came, Io passed quietly. The village did not cry loudly. They spoke softly and remembered deeply. That evening, the fire burned low but steady. Someone told the story again, just as Io had taught them. No spirits came. No signs followed. The lesson no longer needed watching. It lived in the village now, moving through choices, shaping words, guiding hands. The night listened, the fire glowed, and the story rested, ready to rise again whenever carelessness tried to return. And so the story remains. A careless wish, a long lesson, a careful life shaped by listening and love. It is told not to frighten, but to guide, not to punish, but to remind. Whenever anger rises too fast, the story waits. Whenever words grow sharp, the fire remembers. The spirits are quiet now, not because they are gone, but because the lesson stands on its own. The choice has always belonged to us. Long after Io's passing, the village continued to change in quiet ways. People spoke more gently. They thought before wishing. They remembered the story whenever anger rose too fast. The fire became a place of teaching, not fear. Children grew up knowing that words mattered. They learned that wishes were not toys. Elders noticed fewer fights and calmer homes. No one claimed credit. The story did its work without noise. One evening, a stranger arrived and asked why the village felt different. An elder smiled and pointed to the fire. "Sit," he said. "Listen." The story was told again, steady and clear. The careless wish, the listening spirits, the long lesson, the careful life. The stranger stayed quiet for a long time after. Then he nodded. "This story feels true," he said. That night, the wind moved gently through the trees. It did not shake them. It only passed through. The village slept peacefully. Some lessons need pain to begin, but love to finish them. This was one of those lessons. The fire burned low, patient and ready, knowing the story would be needed again someday. Stories like this never end. They wait. As years turned into generations, the names changed, but the lesson stayed the same. New. Children sat by the fire, their faces glowing orange in the light. They asked the same questions, and the answers followed the old path. Parents told the story when patience ran thin. Elders repeated it when voices grew sharp. The village learned to correct itself before the spirits ever needed to listen. One night, a young girl asked, "Why did the spirits answer the wish?" The storyteller answered, "Because truth speaks louder than carelessness." The girl thought quietly. The fire cracked softly. Far away, storms rose and fell, but the village remained steady. The story had built something stronger than walls. It had built understanding. People stopped blaming the spirits. They began watching themselves. That was the greatest change of all. The fire burned steady, neither high nor low, just enough to warm every face around it. One season, hardship returned. Crops failed. Hunger tested patience. Old habits tried to rise again. But the story stood firm. When anger came, someone spoke the lesson. When despair followed, someone listened. No wishes were thrown into the wind. No careless words were spoken to the sky. The spirits remained silent. Silence this time was a blessing. The village endured together. On a quiet night, a child asked, "Will the spirits ever return?" The answer came softly. "They never left," the elder said. "They simply trust us now." The fire agreed. "The story you have just heard is a beautiful African tale I heard long ago. I am telling you to wake your minds to the lesson that careless words can shape painful paths, but careful love can change them. If you were the mother in this story, what would you do differently? I want to know your opinion, because every story is like a candle that can light the path for someone else. God bless you, and may courage guide your hands. Meanwhile, on the final screen, I am leaving you with one of the channel's most beloved folktales. I am sure you'll love it. Thank you for staying with me until this moment.